Coming up on 2020 on ID, a retired couple looking to sell their yacht. The young couple who wanted it for free.
Two of the worst human beings that I've ever come across.
Murder on the open sea.
They tied him to an anchor and they threw him overboard and they drowned him.
A chilling confession.
She's screaming, why are you doing this?
And a killer with a dark past.
I don't think I really had feeling for anybody.
Deadly voyage. And a young girl accuses her cousins of sexual abuse.
I am responsible for putting them in prison.
Now, she says her mother made her lie.
I didn't even comprehend the consequences of what I was saying.
But her mother tells a different story.
I did not frame those boys.
In search of the truth. Welcome to 2020 on ID. I'm John Quinones. How do you know who you can trust? Can you tell from the way a person looks, acts, what they say? Well, sometimes people who seem the most believable carry unexpected secrets. Tom and Jackie Hawks thought they could trust the young couple who walked into their lives. After years in the working world, the Hawks had saved enough money to retire early and travel. But as Jim Avila first reported in 2009, a time of joy was about to be shattered.
There's Jackie watching the dolphin play.
It was a dream life on a dream boat, a 55-foot live-aboard yacht, lovingly called the Well-Deserved, with a name on the stern that said more about its owners than the boat itself.
And we got a good-looking captain on board.
Jackie, hello.
They quit the 9-to-5 young.
Bringing another baby.
To live the life they had saved for during all those hard years working. Tom, a parole officer, Jackie raising his two sons, Matt and Ryan.
He lived a frugal lifestyle. The reason why he was able to retire early and live on the water and do his dream of traveling through Mexico is because of his financial responsibilities.
The Hawks cruising the California and Mexican coastlines, chasing whales.
Oh, he's a big one.
Swimming with sharks.
Almost got you.
And fishing for their own food. And for friendship.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Hi.
Out at sea, Tom was very much at the helm.
This is Captain Tom Hawks and Well-Deserved.
We have no clue what it is.
This home video, with Jackie narrating, captures the adventure. At sea,
Mighty hunters.
and on land.
There are monkeys in this jungle.
Friends Mike Scott
This is a guy party. Yep, all the boys.
and Don Treffer were often on board.
Oh, it's Donnie's birthday.
We always had a good time together. Always mischief.
Locals playing soccer. Oh, and there's a gringo.
Very strong individual.
Here's Tom doing his workout.
Always in great shape. Arizona over 40 arm wrestling champ, you know. So he was a pretty tough guy.
Man, this is scary. Hopefully we'll be all right.
Jackie was always such a trooper. I remember asking my father, and you know what? He's like, you have to give the woman credit. She's living my dream.
Hi, Jace.
A dream interrupted by a grandson.
Oh, he is looking at you, Grandpa.
I've never seen such a big nose.
A 21-inch bundle of happiness named Jace, who Ryan's dad told him altered the retired couple's vision of the good life.
Say hi, Grandma.
And now her dream is to become a grandmother, and I'm not going to take that away from her, and I want to be a grandfather too. They saw his eyes, and just being back with the family, I think they just realized how much they missed us.
After 2 years of life on the water, the Hawks invited their friends back on board and said goodbye to their vagabond life.
I'm so glad you could join us on our last voyage on Well-Deserved.
The Well-Deserved was put up for sale. But as the Hawks' sea dream was ending, on shore in Long Beach, California, another couple, considerably younger, with a totally different backstory, began to think that the Well-Deserved could be their dream boat too. On the outside, Skylar and Jennifer DeLeon look like driven up-and-comers with a new family and a bold future.
We just have a lot of fun together. He's just very sweet, very sensitive. Lots of love letters and things like that throughout our dating.
But in the background, the DeLeons had dark secrets and twisted ambitions centered on finding the fast track to the good life.
What was Jen telling you?
She wanted that fairy tale life. It was kind of one of those balancing acts of, how do you do this? I mean, I'm not the brightest person, and I felt like I was just spinning my wheels on a lot of things.
Skylar and Jen could not have been any more different than the Hawks. Skylar had a Hollywood moment as an awkward boy in the very popular children's program of the 1980s, The Power Rangers. That's him in the orange shirt.
You guys were great.
But even Skylar now admits to call him a child star is a bit of a stretch. And his adult life was a disaster. Discharged less than honorably from the Marine Corps, he bounced from job to job as his wife worked as a hairdresser. And finally, Skylar just stayed home and watched the kids.
He is a very good dad. They have so much fun.
Fun was not how Skylar describes it. He remembers a wife unhappy about their home, cramped in a converted garage at her parents' house, a daughter and a baby on the way. All shared this little room. The bathroom and kitchen were inside the parents' quarters.
So was there pressure in that little garage that you were living in?
Yeah. It was more of like the financial thing and making her happy.
And that would have made her happy if you had a nice, expensive boat.
Yeah.
Skylar and Jen were desperate to move, and when they saw an ad for a boat big enough to live on, moored just a few miles away in Newport Beach, crime writer Tina Derman says the Well-Deserved fit right into Skylar's naive plans.
And so this would be the solution to all of his problems.
Exactly. We'd give him an instant home, a beautiful home, and he wanted that boat. He'd been on it. It was beautiful. It fit his needs perfectly. He wanted it.
The two very different couples with a shared dream are about to meet, but there is one big problem.
Skylar and Jennifer, in actuality, were deeply in debt.
And the Well-Deserved had a hefty price tag, $435,000. Skylar had nowhere near that kind of money, but asked to see the boat anyway.
Skylar is this young kid in his early 20s, and Tom's the seasoned probation officer, and his antenna just goes up. And he flat out asks him, how can a young kid like you afford a boat like this? He just didn't want him on the boat.
Skylar does not give up, and after seeing the family pictures aboard the Well-Deserved and hearing why the Hawks had decided to change dreams and rejoin the Landlubbers, he decides to play a family card of his own.
So here comes a very swollen-bellied Jennifer holding the hand of their toddler. Jackie melts. She brings him on the boat. They're chit-chatting. She tells her about how she's expecting a grandchild. They bond, and by the end of that meeting, Skylar's saying, hey, how about that test ride another day? And Tom says, you call me when you want to come back up, and yeah, we'll go out.
Ryan says his dad had one big weakness, family, and Skylar found it and exploited it.
Jennifer DeLeon, his wife, she's the one that did the convincing. You show family to my family, you talk about family to my family, they're going to let down their guard.
Within a week, the Dreamboat is heading out to sea. On board, Skylar DeLeon and the Hawks. But not everyone on this fateful voyage will return. Stay with us. Carter Ford is the port captain of the Lido Isle Yacht Club and friend and confidant of the Hawks family. And he is worried. Tom and Jackie left port days ago. It's just before Thanksgiving 2004. Their boat is back in the harbor, but alarm bells are going off because the Hawks themselves have not been seen since.
We basically put up a neighborhood watch on the bay.
Carter knew the well-deserved was up for sale, but little about the buyer.
I only knew he was a person that had supposedly been a child actor in Power Rangers. That nice young kid, Tom, called him.
On the day Tom decided to take Skylar out for a run-through of the boat, Carter told him of his concerns.
And he hadn't put any money up. And the sea trial is not like a test drive at the car dealership.
All true. So I asked him finally, well, Tom, do you have a deposit? And there was a hesitancy. Well, no, Carter, actually I don't.
It was the last time Carter Ford, or for that matter anyone, heard from Tom Hawks. Out at sea showing his boat to a prospective buyer and never seen again.
When I didn't hear from her, I just figured she was busy packing the boat up.
But it was much more sinister than that. Tricia Schutz, a close family friend who handled Tom and Jackie's finances, soon became deathly afraid because there was no sign of a boat sale.
When the bank called and said that there was no money deposited, we all knew that something terrible was wrong.
There's a 15th Street pier, dead ahead, dead over.
Alerted by the family that Tom and Jackie were missing, Carter Ford wasted no time cruising the harbor looking for clues, spooked by what he sees at the well-deserved.
The concern level is probably rising. First thing I see that's not Tom and Jackie is the way the boat's tied to the mooring buoys. I see as we go around the boat a white rag hanging out of that porthole. Tom and Jackie would never leave laundry hanging out a window on their boat.
The covers weren't on the wood.
These very beautiful green covers. Not only were they not on, they're just lying in a heap. So here's this beautiful boat, and it's taken only a week, and it's a shambles.
The conclusion you reached was what?
For me, it was a mystery, a worrisome mystery.
This morning, police in the southern part of that state are asking for the public's help in a very mysterious disappearance.
My first priority is, to find about the whereabouts of my parents. I want to know about their safety.
Not only could police not find Tom and Jackie, they could not find their Honda CR-V.
Right now, our focus is on locating them and also the vehicle that they owned.
Orange County prosecutor Matt Murphy.
The local TV stations were broadcasting images of the Hawks, images of their family, images of the car, things like that. And a person down in Ensenada thought that they recognized the car.
It's a huge break, the kind of mistake that foils what Skylar had hoped was a perfect crime. A witness down in Mexico says the car was left not by anyone matching Tom or Jackie's picture, but instead by Skylar DeLeon. It was the first crack in a story that is about to crumble. The second mistake begins with a phone call.
I get a call from the bank, and they're saying that somebody is trying to access Tom and Jackie's account.
These are surveillance pictures that capture Skylar and his wife Jen at a Kingman, Arizona bank.
They walk into the bank. Jennifer was giddy. She's smiling.
Oh my God, we got to find out who these people are. Where's Tom and Jackie?
And at the other end of the phone is bank manager Luann Kenny.
I told her that Skylar had dropped off a power of attorney and was trying to access Tom and Jackie's account.
Did it look like Tom and Jackie's signature?
Jackie's signature, you could tell that she was signing under duress. It was very shaky. It was abnormal.
The noose was tightening around Skylar DeLeon. He was the prime suspect. Family and police were convinced of murder, but there were still no witnesses, and of course, no hint of Jackie and Tom. And Skylar was still telling a good story.
What Skylar told the police was that he paid cash, paid him the full asking price on the hood of a car in the parking lot in Newport. And the Hawks drove out their Honda CR-V, and Skylar claimed that was the last that he'd seen of them.
Does that sound like your parents?
No, it doesn't. So I knew three things. My parents are murdered. I knew that he has something to do with it, and I don't know why.
Skylar's interview with the police, he laughs at the appropriate times. He tells jokes. He appears very concerned for the Hawks. I mean, he is so convincing when he sat down with those police officers. But I think even some of them were convinced that he had nothing to do with their disappearance.
But Skylar's perfect crime was about to take another hit. A search of the DeLeon's little garage apartment turned up this key evidence.
Hi, Jackie. I'm so glad you could join us on our last voyage on Well Deserved.
The Hawks' personal video camera, complete with home movies on board the Well-Deserved.
And he's using that same video camera with one of their tapes to film his Thanksgiving celebration.
Police and prosecutors suspected Skylar's wife Jennifer knew about the plot. They find out that even before the couple told the Hawks they wanted to buy the Well-Deserved, they had approached a realtor looking for a house they could not afford. But even with all of that, there was no smoking gun witness until police get a break. Investigators notice the boat purchase papers have a witness signature on them. They track it to a guard from the Seal Beach jail, Alonzo McChain, who befriended Skylar when he was serving time for burglary. And Skylar somehow convinced him to help steal the boat. But Alonzo's first venture across the criminal line apparently scared him, and when confronted by police, he made a full confession.
The plan was that we were supposed to kidnap them and take them out to sea and toss them overboard.
He gave us the exact details of what happened on the boat during the murder. I don't think anybody realized how horrible it was until we talked to Alonzo.
Alonzo says Skylar then hired another man, a tough gang member named John Kennedy, who he met that day at this Long Beach liquor store. Alonzo says they dress Kennedy in a sweater and slacks and claim he's an accountant. The scene is set. The Hawks are unsuspecting and outnumbered. Skylar, two thugs, and cell phone records show Jen was in frequent contact. They were heading out of the Newport Harbor and out to open sea. On board, 3 men they thought were friends on a sea trial. But what they didn't know was that the men were armed. While in his mid-50s, Tom Hawks was a bodybuilder. Skylar and the slight Alonzo figured they could not overtake him without help.
They tasered him several times, got him in a headlock, managed to handcuff him.
Alonzo's assignment, he says, was to keep Jackie occupied above deck.
So then I heard a lot of thumps, like up against the wall. Yeah, she was fighting. She was trying to hold me back. I walked her down to the bedroom area where Skylar told me to go get some tape from the engine room. He got the tape and he told me to tape their eyes, tape their mouth. They're on the bed, they're laying on the bed, they're handcuffed.
So they brought him upstairs from the stateroom and one at a time forced him to sign the durable power of attorney and the documents indicating that they'd actually sold Skylar the boat.
Yeah, I'm comfortable to do that. Then they had him do it. Skylar told him, if you try anything funny, I'll hit you over the head with this big heavy mag lights.
The Hawks are below deck by this time, bound and gagged, trembling, crying. But even if they could shout at the top of their lungs, this far out in the open sea, no one would have heard them.
She was overwhelmed with what was going. He was calm. She was screaming to Skylar, we trusted you, and your wife came over, you had your little girl over, why are you doing this? It looked like she was a little scared and shaky. Telling him that they didn't want to die and that they just had a new grandchild and they wanted to spend time with and that they were going to do everything Skylar asked them to.
And during that time, they were handcuffed back to back on the bed and Tom Hawks was stroking her hand, trying to comfort his wife.
Then Skylar said he has seen an anchor. They brought it to the back of the boat. Just got some rope, they tied him up together, and then Mr. Hawk was able to lift his legs somehow, and he literally tossed Skylar off his feet and knocked him on his butt. And right behind him, the black guy just takes a big swing at his side of his head and just, I'm pretty sure he knocked him out.
It's a horrible murder. The plan was not to make any provision for their suffering. They didn't choke him, they didn't shoot him, they didn't stab him. They tied him to an anchor and they threw him overboard and they drowned him.
They tied him up together and then put the rope to their pits. I didn't believe what I was looking at. They just pushed them up the side. The back end.
Skylar then turns the boat around and heads back to port. Alonzo says the muscle, John Kennedy, grabs a fishing pole and a beer for the ride home.
Skylar tells me to grab a t-shirt, start wiping things down. Then he tells me to go into the restroom and grab all the medicines, toss them in a, I think, We found over like $3,000 and just split it up.
The Hawks had been sent to the bottom of one of the deepest parts of the Pacific, alive. Their bodies would never be found. How could someone do something so cold?
I've never really felt evil. I've felt more of, I don't care. I don't care about my life. I don't care what happens to you.
When we return, Skylar DeLeon confesses and in a bombshell reveals what some say was the secret motive for the murder.
So you were performing your own surgery?
Yes.
Stay with us. During his trial, Skylar DeLeon did not take the witness stand, but he did sit down with us for his first network television interview and admitted he murdered Tom and Jackie Hawks for their boat.
Are you sorry that the Hawks were murdered?
Well, absolutely.
And are you sorry for them, not just because you're in jail,
yes,
but because of what happened, the cold, icy way that they died?
Yes, I'm absolutely sorry for them. I just wish I could just turn back time. Do I think I should be here now? I mean, I think I should.
So you're not saying you're innocent?
No.
Two innocent people tied to an anchor and thrown overboard while still alive, taken to the bottom of the ocean. Do those thoughts haunt you?
I think I just try not to think about a lot of things.
He's a parasite. I mean, he lives off other people's existing. That's a parasite. I mean, he is a plague to our society.
Even though you're calm on the outside, there must be rage on the inside.
Yeah, there always is. I will always carry tension in my shoulder for the people that did it. And I always have a pain in my stomach for in the manner in which it was done.
Skylar DeLeon says he knows there are no words that can help the Hawks family. But he sat down, he says, in part to explain how the monster was created.
Lots of times, I mean, I wished I was dead. I've hated my childhood.
Skylar's father was a drug dealer. This family picture shows his sister playing in a pile of drug money. According to Skylar and his stepmother, the dad was a tyrant who abused him physically and allowed others to sexually abuse him. Lisa Wilden, Skylar's stepmother.
When Skylar was caught biting his nails, John would stick toothpicks up in between his nails into his finger beds because that would teach him.
Defense investigator Nicole Fisher, who specializes in looking for reasons not to execute murderers like Skylar, says it was worse than that. His drug dealer father, she says, exposed him to a lethal mix of depravity.
In the bathroom, they're mixing drugs, in the living room or whatever, they're in there freebasing cocaine. There's orgies going on in the whole entire house.
Skylar says he became a sociopath, unfeeling about his own welfare and, more critically, the pain he caused others.
There's no doubt about it. I was numb. I mean, I don't think I really had feeling for anybody.
Come on.
And Skylar says not until he got to jail, unable to see his own two children, did the murders he committed mean anything to him.
And I guess losing my kids and not being able to hold the person that I love anymore, that's what, really hits me, man. So I wish I could take back that time and give him back, his parents. And, that's, because it's like now I realize, what he's lost.
He is not a man capable of compassion. He might be able to fake it. He might be able to fake remorse, but it isn't there.
Give him back.
The prosecution countered with forensic psychiatrist Park Dietz as an expert witness who reminded the jury that lots of children are abused, but they choose not to kill as adults.
His genes and his environment made him this kind of person. What he controls is how he acts toward others. He does know just as well as you or I that if you're going to plan to kill someone, you could get punished, and that he knows.
The jury sided with Dietz, and in less than 2 days found Skylar not just guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, but worthy of the death penalty.
A jury has found Skylar DeLeon guilty of
the
3
jury
counts.
recommends the death penalty.
In fact, some believe the motive behind the murders had less to do with his childhood than it did with his odd sexual proclivities. Listen to this bombshell. Skylar wanted to be a woman so badly, in jail he took a razor to his own genitals.
I took a sheet and tied it around
your penis?
Yes. I went to cut it off.
So you were performing your own surgery?
Yes.
And this has been something you've been thinking about for a while?
Yeah, for a long time.
In Skylar DeLeon's garage apartment, investigators found evidence he was researching the procedure. His wife's trial attorney, Mike Malfetta, told us Skylar often wore women's clothes and was determined to be a female.
This caper, this entire murder, this desire to get some wealth and to get some money in was to pay for that sex change.
And in our interview, Skylar says his wife was the dominant player in the marriage, the mastermind and driving force behind the murders.
How much in charge was Jen?
I think we had our roles reversed.
Was she the brains in the family?
I hate that, yeah. I never thought that I would actually ever lose Jen. Like I would do anything to not lose her.
If Jen wasn't there, this never would have happened.
No.
Jennifer DeLeon's attorney, Mike Malfetta, says she was offered 2 separate deals to turn state's evidence and testify against Skylar. She didn't. Instead, she went to trial, was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, losing her children.
But for Skylar DeLeon being in her life, Jennifer DeLeon never commits a single crime. Not a misdemeanor, not a traffic ticket, nothing. It wouldn't have happened.
You know, everybody's trying to blame everybody else. In reality, they're all guilty of it. Skylar and his wife are 2 of the worst, most lamentable human beings that I've ever come across.
In the end, the story of the well-deserved is one of irony. 2 couples with a dream. Skylar and his wife Jennifer taking the ultimate shortcut to riches, murdering 2 people who did everything right. The Hawks, who had worked so hard to live the good life, debt-free and filled with family and friends, only to have it all end so coldly, so undeservedly, off the stern of their beloved dreamboat.
My father believed in rehabilitation of criminals. The way they went was unthinkable. I never heard of an unhumane way to torture someone and kill, 2 loving individuals that did nothing wrong.
As of 2014, Skylar DeLeon remains on death row. He's appealing his conviction. John Kennedy was tried, found guilty of murder, and sentenced to death. He is also appealing his conviction. And Alonzo Machane, who confessed to his part in the murders, pled guilty to 2 counts each of manslaughter, kidnapping, and robbery. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Jennifer, meanwhile, divorced Skylar and is now known as Jennifer Henderson. She has exhausted all of her appeals. Coming up, a young girl makes a shocking confession.
She's like, you have to go into court and say that your cousin sexually assaulted you.
Next thing I know, I'm being locked up.
But was she telling the truth?
These are 2 kids who didn't have resources, and no one's helping them.
Stay with us. Stephanie Arena was just 7 years old when her parents began an ugly divorce. But a story she told then would have devastating effects. And as Jim Avila first reported in 2006, she'd spend years trying to right what she now says was a terrible wrong.
At 16 years old, Stephanie Arena says she has never had sex and is tired of talking about it. She doesn't want to relive her accusations of sexual assault that put her cousins John and Michael Arena in prison. She's trying to resume a normal life with family and friends, but she can't, not while she is haunted by the words that doomed those close to her.
I am responsible for putting them in prison, and Now that I'm older and I can understand the consequences of my actions, I need to step up and do what I have to do to make things right.
She's been trying to make things right for years by writing letters of apology to both brothers in prison. This one to Michael. How are you? I just wanted to tell you I am sorry for putting you in jail. I hope you forgive me. Love, Stephanie. It all started for Stephanie when she was just 7 in the center of a ruthless custody battle, becoming the victim in what some call a revenge plot orchestrated by her mother. Stephanie's starring role, she says, make believe she was molested.
She was like, you have to go into court and say that your cousin sexually assaulted you. They put their penis in your vagina.
It's 1997. Her parents are braced for a nasty fight over Stephanie and her brother. But there is a bright spot in the little girl's life. Her teenage cousins, John, 15, and Michael Arena, 14. Stephanie's close family.
I'd want to hang out with them and spend time with them because they were my family. And they were like big brothers to me.
John and Michael felt the same way. Raised by loving parents, they were troubled to see Stephanie caught in a family war. She lived just down the road, and the brothers say they felt like her protectors.
I've watched grow up for so long. I mean, just from being a little bitty thing and growing up. I can always see her smiling.
But Stephanie's life of chaos is about to take a tragic turn. Her parents' feud erupts. Mom steals $600 from the cash register at work and then violates a custody order not to leave the state, stealing Stephanie and her brother, moving to this Florida homeless shelter, and then, to justify leaving Texas, tells social workers her kids were being molested.
That's pretty much when she started all these lies about John and Michael.
Lies, she says, that her cousins had repeatedly sexually molested her. At one point, Stephanie said the boys put their privates in my butt, and forcing Stephanie to make a terrible choice: risk her mother's love by contradicting her story or turn on her cousins.
She said to you, say these things about your cousins, or what?
Or she's going to jail. So I chose to tell these lies about Michael and John.
Stephanie says she was a tool, prying her family apart, manipulated, she says, because she was afraid to lose her mother. A woman Stephanie claims was on a mission of revenge against a father who would not drop the custody battle.
It was just basically my mom saying, well, I now hate your father's side of the family, so I'm going to twist it and manipulate it and hurt them as much as I possibly can.
So Stephanie pointed her tiny finger at her beloved cousins and quietly mumbled the charges that would threaten them with prison.
It took me a long time for the story to get to flow straight. There's actually an interview where I was like, hold on, I have to ask my mom what to say.
Strangely, Stephanie's mother never took her supposedly abused daughter to police or a doctor. Instead, she went to social workers and counselors who eventually went to police. John and Michael are high school teens at the time. Michael dreams of a football career. John's passion, fast cars and motorcycles. Neither brother has a police record when their parents voluntarily take them in for questioning.
I went in there just doing what my father told me to do. You know, he just told me, don't worry, they're not going to do us any harm. And next thing I know, I'm being locked up.
It is a weak case, based mostly upon Stephanie's troubled accusation, until John makes what he calls the mistake that changes his life. He confesses twice, first in his own writing. He says he is forced to say during a 3-hour interrogation, 17 years old with no access to his parents or an attorney, that he had oral sex with Stephanie 3 or 4 times. Claims police deny.
As you're writing this down, you're thinking what?
I just want to leave.
You didn't think if I write this down, I may never leave?
Not once. I was scared.
Not only did your confession hurt you, it hurt your brother.
Right. What I was told from my lawyer was that if I took the plea bargain for 5 years, they would drop the charges on my brother.
And what happened to your brother?
He got 20.
John's attorney denies offering him that deal. In the end, John's plan had backfired. John was sentenced to 7 years and paroled after 5. As for his 16-year-old brother Michael, who never confessed, in just 3 short days, he's tried, found guilty, and sentenced to 20 years. He can't pay for experts, so there's just a day and a half of testimony. The main witness is Stephanie, and she can barely get the charges out. She can't remember when it happened. Where it happened is vague. She says her house, her cousin's house, and her grandparents' house. And when asked specifics about oral sex, she first says, "I think so. I can't remember."
I didn't even know what I was saying. And I didn't even comprehend the consequences of what I was saying about my cousins.
The evidence used to back Stephanie's charge had its problems too. On the stand, Stephanie never provided details about how she was molested. But a medical expert for the prosecution, Dr. Pamela Sue Green, who never personally examined Stephanie but reviewed medical records, testified that her scant or thin hymenal tissue is a suspicious finding for possible vaginal penetration.
A thin rim of hymenal tissue is not diagnostic of penetration. Not.
Dr. Stephen Isle has 20 years' experience performing thousands of exams on kids with claims of molestation. We showed Dr. Isle and 3 other leading doctors Stephanie's complete exam. They all disagree with the prosecution's medical expert because, they say, she overstated the evidence.
If this material and this history and this physical were used to put people in jail, that was over the top, that shouldn't have been done, and that's terrible.
In a letter to 2020, the prosecution's medical expert stands by her conclusion that penetration was a possibility, based on, she states, my review of the entire medical record.
I know that I didn't have sex. So what that lady was saying on the stand, I don't know. I am still a virgin, and I'm telling the truth.
When we come back, Stephanie's mother tells her side of the story.
I did not frame those boys, and my children asked me to take them out of there.
But John's polygraph says something different.
If I was to testify in court, my opinion would be that he did not molest Stephanie.
Will the cousins' names finally be cleared? Stay with us.
Young Stephanie Arena was once hailed as a brave little witness when she went to court and said her cousins molested her. But now that she's apologized to those boys, and in perhaps her most courageous moment, publicly recanted those charges, she says the same judge and prosecutor who thought her so brave treated her like a criminal.
I'm like, wait a second. You're a judge, you're supposed to serve justice, and now I'm telling you the truth, and you don't care.
In fact, Judge Edward Johnson warned her repeatedly that she could face felony prosecution for perjury and a possible 10-year prison sentence if she recanted her original charges. Stephanie says she thought that was a threat from a judge who didn't want to spend any more time on this case. But even at her young age, she refused to back down, willing to go to prison.
I really do think that 2 to 10 years is a small price to pay.
And now a cruel irony. Stephanie's mother, who was supposed to be protecting her daughter, accusing the cousins of molesting Stephanie, is at the same time keeping company with 2 convicted child molesters, even living with this one. A judge found the mother's judgment so poor, he took Stephanie away from her and granted sole custody to her dad. That's just one of the reasons we wanted to talk to Stephanie's mom, LaVonna Arena. It wasn't easy finding her, but we did, living with a boyfriend in Muscatine, Iowa.
I did not frame those boys, and my children asked me to take them out of there. And in fact, they begged me,
and to this day, you think those boys molested your daughter?
Yes, I do.
But the medical records show that Stephanie has never had any problems, never had sex even.
Sir, I've been told a long time ago that it's possible that their tissues, whatever, medically, after a long period of time, it might be difficult to detect. How about anal penetration?
There's no evidence of that either.
Sir,
the report. Can I show you the report?
You got me totally stumped.
Let me show you the report. You can read this here. Did not see any sign of injury or scarring. There's no evidence here that she's either been raped or even had sex. And she says she's never had sex. She says today that she is still a virgin.
Here's another troubling LaVonna pattern. Police records and family testimony suggest that on 3 different occasions, she has falsely accused family members of abusing her kids, including a charge against Stephanie's father, Stephen.
She accused me and John and Michael again while they were incarcerated. So
they're in jail.
Right. And
she says they're still molesting your daughter.
Right.
So what did that tell you?
That she uses this as a weapon to get what she wants.
LaVonna Arena asked us not to use this sidewalk interview, suggesting a more formal interview later. She apparently decided against that and stopped taking our calls. But her live-in boyfriend dropped a bombshell, explaining to me by phone that LaVonna would like to tell the truth, wants to explain why she made Stephanie lie. But her boyfriend told me, quote, LaVonna is afraid she would go to jail.
When I realized that she manipulated me, that's when I was like, I don't really care for you anymore.
Don't really care for you anymore?
As in hate you. I don't want anything to do with you.
That's strong. You hate her.
I can honestly say I hate her.
So that gets us back to John, who after all these years is still trying to explain what he insists was his false confession. And maybe he finally has an answer. As a condition of parole, he has to submit to a yearly polygraph test, which he did, administered by Peter Heller, who works not for John, but for the state of Texas. And John passed when he denied molesting Stephanie. Quote, no deception indicated.
In my opinion, he was truthful to the relevant questions. If I was to testify in court, my opinion would be that he did not molest Stephanie.
So what happens now? As the county attorney Rick Miller contends in a letter to 2020, all of these matters were thoroughly vetted on appeal after appeal, and the evidence remained what it was, convincing. Wrongful conviction expert and private eye Paul Cialino has written about helping release dozens of death row inmates. He says there is just one route for the Arena boys.
It's bleak. Without a crew of high-priced lawyers, the governor is going to have to step in here and do the right thing. These are 2 kids who didn't have resources, and no one's helping them.
And of course, they're not the only victims. Young Stephanie Arena is a victim too. Not of molestation, she says, but of guilt.
Takes me about an hour, hour and a half each night to fall asleep, and that's when I think about it a lot. It's right before I go to sleep.
There is not a day Stephanie doesn't think about the devious plot she says her mother masterminded. Revenge, starring a 7-year-old girl.
What is the least you want out of this?
Just for somebody to care. Just for somebody to realize, hey, what happened to these boys was wrong.
Michael Arena was released in 2012 after spending 13 years behind bars. As part of a deal negotiated with the state of Texas, he does not have to register as a sex offender. His brother John, however, is a registered sex offender and says he struggles with that stigma. He's still fighting to clear his name. Stephanie tells us she stays in touch with both of her cousins, and as of 2014, she is pursuing a college degree in biology and plans to become a vet. She says she maintains a relationship with her mother. I'm John Quinones. Please join us next time for another edition of 2020 on ID.